Welcome to HR Success Talk HR Masterclass. So today we're going to study about the implementation of performance management system. So if you're done with performance management planning and performance management communication, the next phase is the implementation. So first we will cover the implementation phase, and then after we will cover the monitoring and evaluation of performance. So first, let me introduce myself. I'm Charlotte Ibanez. I'm the country head for HR Success Talk UAE chapter, and I'm also the director for policy and contracts of the Philippine Business Council. And I'm so happy and glad to be part of this initiative to educate more professionals regarding performance management. So, for today's agenda, we have two things that we want to accomplish. First of all, of course, we need to explore what really matters in any performance management system. So, first of all, how do we effectively use the performance management system? And second, how seriously the managers and employees are when it comes to taking those performance management review. This is why both the most challenging and the most important part of developing an effective performance management is actually the successful implementation. So if we look at the next slide, first of all, implementation and monitoring. Um, there are a lot, these will be the next challenging job after you have done the communication and of the planning and the communication and the implementation of a strong performance management system, if done well, can help organizations actually increase employee engagement and improve individual performance, and of course contribute to the business growth. Now, before implementation, of course, we have to have um, things that we need to factor in or to consider. So, the things that we need to consider doing, because this initiative would actually require the combined effort of many different stakeholders within the company. So, first, we have to get a clear understanding of we, how the system works, its benefits, and how the purpose for it is attained. And then, second, it will also require organizational wide support and approval from the senior management. Because without the approval and support from the management, it means um, the management would need to follow all the parameters of the system themselves and establish expectations for their direct reports to do so, as well the perspective of the workforce. So it will also allow a time to know if there's any disagreement when it comes to the performance management system from employees. So if there is a need to answer their questions and deal with every situation fairly, then that would be a very good opportunity. Then third, of course, in the business world, there are business units involved. So it it may also be helpful to educate the executive team about the critical role that performance management system can play in the company's effectiveness and convince them about the criticality of their role as line managers and as evaluators in leading the effort. So when it comes to training. So before we roll out the performance management system, there are certain trainings that needs to be conducted to ensure that, of course, all people involved in the implementation or in the project have the right skills and tools in order for them to be successful in its implementation. So, what are the training areas in which we need to focus on? So, if you look at the slide, first of all, we have to train all the line managers. That will be the evaluator or the one who will rate the employee or the employees, and of course, ensure that they are not committing any rating errors. So, it's important for line managers to understand how to rate their subordinates. And second, of course, the training can also be in terms of the frame of reference. So, where it's explained the different dimensions of an employee may be assessed. So, what are the things that you need to assess? So, if you have the performance management system in place, there are key performance indicators. And of course, it balances the skill set and the review of the behavior of the employee. So, normally in the performance management system, you can see this under the key performance indicators, and you would know exactly what areas you need to look into to balance your view as you evaluate your employees. And third, of course, training on how line managers effectively observe performance. Now, of course, there's also a skill involved in terms of how do you observe their performance. So later on, we'll get onto that when we reach on to how do you monitor the performance of an employee. What are the things that you need to do? How do you document it? How do you record it so that it will not be difficult for you to track it? So especially if you are managing a big department, or there are many team members involved, of course, you cannot remember everything. So you have to have a sort of recording system where you will track their performance. And of course, lastly, training on how to increase the line manager's confidence in terms of managing employees' performance. It's very important that as the evaluator, as the one leading this initiative in the front line, you have to understand, you have to have that kind of confidence in which you know how exactly what you are going to do and what are the steps that you need to undertake in order to carry out the performance management system. So that's the reason why you are having this different kinds of training. So oftentimes we thought that the moment we roll it out and explain the mechanics on how you will conduct the performance management system, your task or your responsibility is finished. But there are a lot of other things that you need to prepare in order for you to have a very successful implementation. And of course, there are some of organizations that will do a sort of a testing. So there are, of course, before the actual implementation of the system, they would normally resort to pilot testing. So you can opt to pilot test the new process or a system in some part of the business units prior to a large scale implementation. So especially if you belong to an organization where there are many departments, there are many business units, or there are many team members involved, you may want to do a pilot testing of the system in order for you to understand whether it's going to work effectively. So the testing will somehow need to show if the system functions smoothly and efficiently, especially if you are using an automated performance management system, or if you're doing it manually. Of course, you have to get the feedback, because in the performance management system pilot test, it will reveal if the line managers and employees understand and actually support the process, or if further change management is required in order for you to implement it with the right skills, tools, and resources. So, but however, if you don't have the liberty of time to do this, of course, you can opt to proceed to commence the implementation of the performance management system, provided that you have already done your planning and you have also communicated it well. So, if the structure is very straightforward and you were able to explain to all stakeholders how it's going to work out or how it's going to pan out, then it's okay to proceed with the performance management review without doing the pilot test. So, are you ready to start? That's the question. To start the performance review system. And that is something that you need to ask yourself and your team. And of course, there are actually suggestions. There are suggestions regarding the implementation phase. So, there are related activities to the performance management system whereby you can implement it in your company. So, first, there is a performance management system hotline. So, when we speak about performance management system hotline, it means that you are allowing line managers and employees to ask questions, to give you a call and ask questions about the performance management system as you are rolling out the system itself. So this is actually very useful and practical, particularly around the time period when you are actually doing the evaluations, because it will clarify any uncertainties and also you can provide guidance to every team members. And second, another suggestion that you can do is the web-based training. And this means that you already have a ready prepared, maybe a recorded video that is in your website, and it's about the training on the performance management system. So it can be done by your HR department, whereby the members of the HR department have recorded the procedure, the process, the key performance indicators, the deadline, what are the things they need to do, the criterias, and how they will be able to rate each and every employee and what are the things that they need to monitor. So if the whole cycle of the performance management system is actually very clear, detailed in your web-based training, it will be very helpful for all the employees, because in this manner they can always access it. It will allow managers and employees to access it at their own pace. So if they have extra time from their work, they can spend a little bit of time to understand how the system works. And then next, of course, the topic on how do you monitor the performance of your employees, and of course, how do you monitor the system itself, whether it's effective or not. So there is a two-prong approach in which you need to look into this. It's not only the performance of the employees that you need to monitor and evaluate, you also need to understand whether the system itself is effective enough to understand whether you have attained the purpose for which it was created. So, what are the characteristics of performance monitoring when you are monitoring employees? So, here are some of the suggested steps to improve the performance management system for employees. So, first of all, it's a critical tool. Okay, you have to understand that it's a tool for planning, managing, and documenting data collection. Okay, second, it's also an important part of performance management system to control and measure behaviors. And third, it also helps in maintaining the employee's performance as per the goals and objectives that was set by the organization normally at the beginning of the year. So normally in a performance management form or in a performance management system, there is a goal setting at the beginning of the year, or however, whenever you want it to be set. There are goals, there are business objectives, there are targets that are listed down and agreed with employees. And then later on, uh, maybe after a quarter or after a year, if you are doing a quarter review or you are doing a half a year review, then, or probably an annual review for that matter. So by the end of the year, you would need to go back to those goals and targets that you have set, whether based on the key performance indicators that have been agreed to be measured, you have met the requirements. And of course, fourth, it the performance monitoring is actually aiding you in building strong relationships between the management and employees for their efficient performance. So as long as you are always using the right communication structure or framework, everything can be discussed and can be clarified so that you will always have that kind of relationship or engagement with your employees. So if there is a lack of communication, that is where the relationship fails, and you were not able to engage, or you were not able to make it clear to them what is the purpose of this performance management system. And lastly, number five, it actually facilitates the career development of employees and provides the needed training and development opportunities for your workforce. Now, of course, the process of performance monitoring, there are a lot of ways in which you can do this. And there are four things that I would like to suggest in which how do you record the performance of your team. Okay. First of all, there is a periodic written reports. Now, this is really helpful for those who are trying to track the performance of their employees, and this is where you would need to have those in record, all the periodic written reports. So maybe you are doing a monthly report, quarterly report, especially for senior level positions. You normally ask for reports, and this is where you can see whether they are performing well, whether as a team they are collaborating well. That could really be an area where you can use as a source for you to monitor the performance of your employees. Second is scheduled meetings. So you would have to schedule a meeting in which you would need to meet your team members and understand where they are, how they are progressing. And of course, during meetings, this is where you would know what they are doing exactly. So it's a good avenue for you to ask the pertinent questions for you to understand them. And of course, you have the on the spot inspection. These are for those people working in the field, or you can do a site visit. So normally, if you are probably in the construction industry, you are in facilities management, those who are working in oil and gas, and your work actually involves physical activities that you are in the field, or those sales people. So sometimes when the line managers goes out and try to understand what's the progress of the performance of their employees, they would have to do this. They would go for a surprise visit and understand whether they are really seeing and verifying, validating whether whatever is in the written report is actually what is happening on site. And of course, lastly, you have the relevant and reliable information where you can, there are other available sources. You can also cross check. There are organizations that are doing 360-degree feedback as part of their performance review, which means that even your colleagues will be asked questions how you are performing, how you are collaborating well. Certain managers, senior level positions that are not really, you are not directly reporting to them, but you are interacting with them in one way or another. So there's actually a peer review. So these are the ways in which you can verify whether they are doing well. And of course, there are other business units, like, of course, the human resources department, who monitors the performance of all employees, is another avenue where you can get all this information. So in the entire course of the monitoring process, the line manager will need to provide some feedback to employees and ask also for feedback from employees during group or team meetings. So it's important also that even if you are, for example, the line manager, you do not only solicit feedback, but you also ask for feedback about you, so you would understand whether what you are doing is actually effective. So they need to discuss common issues, concerns, and problems. So this is where scheduled meetings will really be helpful. Of course, to know the value of monitoring, it's critical that you understand what are the reasons behind the implementation of a performance management system. So, based on um, most organizations, they look at performance management system as a way to provide scope for modification or change, or actually do some alteration on their existing performance management performance objectives. So because it is actually linked in the mission and objectives of the company. So this is an opportunity for the company to understand what are needed to be updated, what are needed to be changed. Second, it also helps in the review and correcting certain performance objectives, because it is linked to, sorry, if there's also a way to correct the performance objectives, and it is linked to the mission and objectives of the company. Then, of course, you have the management review, in which you need to know also the how the management is viewing all this. So this is also an important reason why you monitor performance. Then of course you continually enhance it, continually enhances the performance of employees and making them more efficient, because you are more, if you know that someone is tracking your performance, of course you always want to look good, you always want to put your best foot forward. So in one way or another, it helps people to know that whatever they are doing, it's actually being tracked. So in one way or another, it's enhancing the performance of employees. And of course, it helps in realizing employees' potential. So of course, this is where they want to perform better. They want to show how excellent they are, and they increase the bar for the quality or the standard of their work. So it becomes helpful and it becomes critical why we need to do some performance review. Now, in terms of monitoring, of course, in evaluating the system, now earlier we were talking about monitoring the performance, how it is beneficial for us to monitor the performance of employees. Now, we need to understand whether the system itself that you have used as a tool is effective to attain the objective or the objectives or purpose for which you have implemented it. So first of course, there are some factors that we need to look into. First is training. We need to ensure that trainings for all users have been completed. So we have to understand, when we monitor the performance management system, we need to know whether all line managers have been trained already, all employees have been given the brief regarding it. They know the process, the mechanisms, the criteria, the KPI, and everything that they needed to complete to do it. Second, there are other performance management activities. So we need to check whether all forms have been submitted to HR if we are doing it manually. If we are, on the other hand, doing it um, as automated, we need to know whether electronically all forms have been filled out correctly and stored in the system. And then, of course, you have the management review. This is to check whether the evaluation is actually consistent, whether it's fair and without bias, whether all people involved is implementing it across the entire organization, because you cannot be having a key performance indicator for a certain set of people when they belong to one department and they're doing the same tasks and doing the same roles. So you cannot play favoritism in this regard. So this is where you really monitor whether the performance management system is actually being done well and efficiently and effectively by line managers. And then, of course, there is a tracking alignment. What is this? This is to understand whether the system results is actually aligned with HR decisions, like whether after carrying out this particular performance management review and there's a decision there that shows that a person is deserving of, for example, promotion and rewards, you have to incentivize it. It cannot be that there's no link or connection to that. If you have said it from the beginning that all those who are getting excellent grade in this performance review will receive, for example, a bonus, will receive an incentive, then it must show. Okay, you cannot, it's always tied up with certain HR decisions. So you need to see the alignment, whether it's doing what it's needed to do. And of course, you have to get some feedback. It's important also for you to gather the feedback from users. So users are line managers, those who are evaluating or rating the employees, and users are also employees because they also need to put their feedback. So there are performance management system that also ask for the feedback of the employees, whether the feedback that was given to them or the grades that has been given to them by their line manager is accurate or not, whether they agree or not. So it's a way for you to solicit the feedback. So this is the important factors of these are the important factors in which you do the monitoring and evaluation of the system. And now, of course, we have to know and understand the link. So what is the link? Linking the development, the appraisal, and objectives of the performance management system. So for, of course, you have to assess training and development needs. So this is actually derived from Hug March 1988 study. So we have to understand these are the reasons given by the organization why they are carrying out performance monitoring. So first you have to assess training and development needs. The only way to do it is after you have done the performance review, because you would see the gap. Are your employees or subordinate needing some kind of training. And what are those trainings? There are people that there's no gap, but you believe that this person has a potential for growth, so you develop them. So what are their development needs? Second, help improve the current performance. So it's important for you to understand, okay, for this year 2022, a new set of targets will be given. So it improves your current performance, because back in 2021, let's say for example, there is a different quota for salespeople. Now it has increased to recoup what have the company lost for the past pandemic. So maybe these are the things in which you would need to improve on the current performance. And of course, you would need to provide them some sort of advice on how they can perform better. Then, of course, you have to review the past performance. PMS is a good way to track what happens in the past. What is the history of this person? What is the history of this team? Are you hitting the targets or not? And this is also one way for you to see the pattern of performance from the last 5 years, whether it's something that you can use as a tool when you are trying to assess the efficiency and the effectiveness of whatever you are implementing, especially if you are the manager or people that are in senior level position. It is very helpful for them to see whether the workforce is actually doing the things that they need to do, or maybe you need to streamline. There are certain tasks that you don't need to do and shortcut the process. What are the things that you need to automate? So you also use this PMS for to assess future potential or promotability of a person. So there are a lot of ways, of course, on a daily encounter, especially if you're handling a lot of team members. PMS would be a good way for you to see who is logging behind, who has the potential to become a manager, to become a supervisor, those that can be promoted in the future. So if you have succession planning, you know already what to do, that you need to have a career development for each individual. And of course, you need to assess career planning decisions, as I've mentioned earlier. So what is your plan for this specific person? Does this person has the ability to become manager someday? If they do, then you need to provide them the needed skills, the needed training to do it. Of course, you also need to set the performance objectives. So after the year that have passed, you will now set new performance objectives for the coming year, or for the coming quarter, or for the coming month. So PMS will be a good opportunity to see what needed to be adjusted, what needed to be changed. And of course, you need to assess the increase to new levels in terms of salary. So, of course, this will be a good avenue for you to reward or increase. So, there are organizations that have already committed to their team members that they will adjust their salary if they get a good grade. So, for those people that are receiving excellent grades, where they have reached a certain score, they will be able to be adjusted in their salary, or sometimes you will get a bonus. So these are the ways in which you can use the performance management system to your advantage. And of course, it is also used for updating personal records. So of course, you every employee, in for future reference, you have something that you can use, how this particular person have performed, especially if you're eyeing for certain positions in which you want to transfer this employee. And of course, you have to see what are the steps that you need to undertake in order for you to improve. So once you identify the gaps in the performance management system, we need to address it. And through the following steps, we are suggesting um, how you will be able to improve it. So, first of all, summarize the results and areas of improvement for people concerned. Now, it's important that you record it. So, you can only summarize the results when you are able to record and track the performance of each and every members of your team and see where you can contribute and in identifying areas of improvement. And of course, there will be an action plan together with the areas of improvement. So, for example, you have noticed that that person lacks the skill set in terms of communicating effectively, and you are trying to groom this person to become a supervisor or manager. This is where that you can specifically pinpoint, okay, first you need to go to this training. Second, you need to be able to know how to present well. And next time you will give them tasks in order for them to um, rehearse themselves and be able to have that opportunity to speak publicly. So there are a lot of ways. So whatever gap that you are seeing, you have to put an area of improvement and then the action plan that goes with it. The second step is you also need to consult the senior management on the results, because this is also a way for you to see the plan that you need to undertake. So if you are an HR manager or a director leading or head of the human capital department, this is where you also need to consult the senior management for decision making. So it's important that you understand, okay, what are the things that you have done well, what are the things that you need to improve on in terms of implementing this performance management system. So sometimes you get fresh perspective and a different kind of insight from people that are not working on the system itself. So if you consult the senior management in one way or another, they would say, um, I've noticed this. These are the things that we weren't able to put in the KPI. These are the things that we lack a little bit of support for our employees. So they will give you some ideas or some suggestions in which you can better yourself. And once you obtain their support for making such changes and seek their ideas and how you can improve, make those improvements, it looks good on you because you are showing that you are first of all teachable, even if you are the one implementing the PMS. It also shows how resilient and proactive you are in terms of the gaps that needed to be addressed. You're not negative, you're not deflecting any of those things that needed to be improved or addressed. And third, you need to run focus groups with different employees. Sometimes you'll be surprised. Employees coming from different areas or business unit of the company. There are a lot of suggestions that you can gather from them. You can solicit ideas from them. So because there are so many brains inside the company, and sometimes you thought that your idea is the only one that is good, when in fact it's not. That's the reality. There are so many good people, and that's the reason why these people are in your organization. This is where you need to have some focus groups, people that are reliable, people that you can entrust to lead this kind of focus groups. So you can ask them, okay, what do you think about the performance review? Are there areas that you think we need to look into? So especially after the pandemic, there are a lot of things that HR is experiencing as a difficulty because of the different work models that we have now. So it's going to be a challenge for you to implement the performance management if some of your employees are working in a hybrid model. So if you are doing a hybrid model, of course, there are occasions where you cannot physically see them. and you are just conversing with them virtually or dealing with them remotely. So this is another area where other employees who are feeling the challenges can be in those focus groups and can suggest and provide some feedback to you how they will be able to contribute in that perspective on how you can better the performance management system. And of course, you need to also create an action plan. That's number four. Discuss with all stakeholders, senior management, line managers, and employees for feedback. Okay. And after getting the feedback, you need to amend the action plan. And based on that, on the feedback that you have received, you need to implement it afterwards. So it's useless for you to have a focus groups and you will not do anything about it. So it's gonna be just all talk, all lip service. So once you created those focus groups or ask people that are going to give you some suggestions or feedback about the system, it's important that you coupled it with an action so that you understand where you would need to improve and you need to amend the plan that you have initially crafted and then implement it later on. So, for example, you have used the performance management system for the last quarter and there are some feedbacks that were given. Don't bury it underground, those suggestions, but rather worked on it and implement it to the team so that they will feel next time you have a focus groups, next time that you solicit feedback, they would love to provide you more suggestions because they know whatever that they have put on the table were actually being acknowledged, being recognized, being actioned upon, and being looked into. So sometimes there are people that are doing well in terms of providing suggestions. There are a lot of good people. They are doing good. They have very good insight in terms of understanding this kind of things. So if you act on it and show that you are really committed to the goal or your objective in this performance management system, then next time they will be more engaged. They will be happy to participate. And of course, lastly, as we embrace new ways of working, we have to understand that performance management system is always connected with development. Whether we are talking about individual or whether we are talking about our teams. So finally, we need to always incorporate coaching and mentoring. So this is important. Some people forget to include this in their plan that you have to assign people to mentor. So if you are in the HR department, there are occasions where you do not have enough people to coach everyone, especially if you have so many team members, so many employees across the organization. So what you can do is actually talk to the line managers, talk to certain people that you think are reliable, dependable, and they will become the coach and mentor. You just have to explain to them that these individuals need some guidance. So if there are occasions where you need to ask certain senior people to train the newbies, to train younger generations about how to do the work. So you can also do some job shadowing. So there are a lot of ways in which you can incorporate the development phase. So it's useless to have a performance review and you are not actually trying to give them an opportunity for them to grow or to develop. So incorporate coaching and mentoring through other people. If you are the HR department and you can still do it, it's fine, so that you can positively contribute to the employees' growth and encourage them to reach greater heights. So it's rewarding to feel that in their professional life you were able to be part of it, and contribute on that aspect, and they will be able to develop this kind of learning culture. And when you do that, this is when all the people in your organization have developed that learning culture, then this will catapult your organization to reach greater heights, because every organization needs change and embrace change. And the only way for you to embrace change are for people to be innovative. People are needs to be creative, and you can only do that if you always have this learning culture. So with that, I would like to thank you, and I hope that each one of you create a lasting impact in your organization and to those people around you. So happy learning from HR Success Doc.